See Heather MacDonald, James O'Keefe, and Sheriff David Clark at Freedom Summit 2018. Get your tickets at freedomsummitchicago.com.
Yeah, we're going to see Heather MacDonald October 27th, Freedom Summit. And Heather MacDonald's up next. But more teases from the wide-ranging interview of First Lady Melania Trump by ABC News that airs this evening. A couple more questions they teased out to get your interest, and I'm interested. I am kind of interested in what Melania has to say about the range of topics they discuss, including why she's taken up the issue of cyberbullying. She started this whole campaign against cyberbullying and teaching, particularly young people how to comport themselves on social media.
I could say I'm the most bullied person on the world.
You think you're the most bullied person in the world?
One of them, if you really see what people are saying about me. That's why my Be Best initiative is focusing on social media and online behavior. We need to educate the children of social emotional behavior so when they grow up and they know how to deal with those issues.
What's interesting is that she didn't sound dissimilar to Michelle Obama, who was on the Today Show yesterday. And Michelle Obama did not echo the sentiments of one Eric Holder.
She did not.
She did not echo the sentiments of one Hillary Clinton. She sort of doubled down on her now infamous they go low, we go high formulation.
What would you say now about your motto? Do you think it still stands when they go low, we go high?
Absolutely. Fear is not it's not a proper motivator. Hope wins out. And if you think about how you want your kids to be raised, how you want them to think about life and their opportunities. Do you want them afraid of their neighbors? Do you want them angry? Do you want them vengeful? If we think of the values that we try to promote to our children, Savannah, you're a mother right now. And at this point, you have to think about what are the things you're telling your girls? Which motto do you want them to live by? And I have to think about that as a mother, as someone who's a role model to young girls. We want them to grow up with promise and hope. And we can't model something different if we want them to be better than that.
Well, yeah, okay. I'd have a follow-up, though. Savannah didn't offer this follow-up, but I would have if I was
on the couch.
Was on the couch, yeah. That'll never happen. But what about sort of mob mentality? What about the presumption of innocence? What about the Mean Girls phenomenon, as it were? Like this case we talked about earlier in the show out of this Pittsburgh high school where these girls conspired to falsely accuse a young man of sexual assault. What about what we've seen there? What about teaching your girls and your boys about the presumption of innocence and about independent thinking? Do you agree with that as well? Or do we believe somebody, give somebody the benefit of the doubt solely based on their race or their gender? I would love to hear Michelle Obama's answer to that in the context of what we've seen over the last 3 weeks. For more on that topic, we're pleased to be joined by Heather MacDonald, contributing editor for City Journal, author of the bestseller The War on Cops, and she's written a good piece about Me Too as well. You can find it at City Journal. Heather, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on, Don. Great to be with you.
What about this week where in the aftermath of the Kavanaugh confirmation, we've heard from Hillary Clinton that, look, I'm happy to be civil as soon as you give us congressional majorities. Or from Eric Holder that if they go low in our estimation, then we kick them, versus what you're hearing from the former First Lady and the current one?
Well, I think it's somewhat hypocritical on Michelle Obama's part because her husband's administration was perpetrating the type of identity politics that is leading to such civil unrest and the threat of violence in our society coming out of the academy. You have a concerted effort to teach students to hate each other, to hate the greatest works of Western civilization based on the trivialities of gonads and melanin. The schools are starting really in K through 12, but reaching an absolute crescendo of frenzy in universities talk endlessly about toxic masculinity and white privilege. Whites are portrayed as especially white males, as the source of all evil the globe over. And you speak about due process. Obviously, that victim ideology, this poisonous identity politics, is now taking square aim at our fundamentals of justice with the believe survivors mantra, which presumes guilt on the part of the accused, presumes innocence on the part of the accuser, and the assumption that the accuser deserves unquestioning credulity on the part of observers. This turns our system of justice upside down and places power in the government that I would think anybody with any knowledge of history would be very reluctant to place.
I was really your recent piece on this is really powerful, and it reminded me a little bit the way that you end it, kind of turning it back to women, a little bit of what Kellyanne Conway said when she admitted to Jake Tapper that she had been a victim of sexual assault, and she said, "You have to be responsible for yourself. You're responsible for your own conduct. Judge Kavanaugh, Jake Tapper, not responsible for what happened to me." And you say in your piece how our booze-fueled hookup culture has made relations between men and women messier than ever, leaving many girls and women with pains of regret, but those regrets do not equal rape. Could you talk a little bit more about that part of the story that never seems to really get covered?
Well, we are not living through an epidemic of campus rape. The facts speak for themselves. If that were the case, we would have seen a stampede to create single-sex schools decades ago where girls could study in safety. Instead, every weekend they continue to troop to frat parties. So there's not rape going on, but what there is going on is a sordid scene of drunken one-night stand hookups. The girls drink themselves blotto precisely to lower their sexual inhibitions. This really appalling scene of casual promiscuity is the direct outgrowth of sexual liberation, which was founded on a lie. And that lie is that males and females react identically to casual sex. They have identical sex drives, and that both males and females desire as many no-strings-attached couplings as possible. That is not true. Males and females have different sex drives. The male libido is voracious, the female more selective, and females have emotional responses to intercourse that are much more frequent than males, which isn't to say that males are completely unaffected emotionally, but on average, females produce hormones after intercourse that lead to a sense of emotional bonding. What happens on college campuses frequently is the girls sort of see the guys around campus seemingly completely unaffected by their drunken hookup, and they feel regret, they feel resentful. Sometimes it's a case of, well, the girl has cheated on her boyfriend with this guy, so she lodges a rape complaint to try and get herself off the hook. But all of these instances of regretted sex that are then converted by the massive Title IX bureaucracies into phony rape accusations, they are nevertheless can be disquieting. They could all be avoided completely if girls returned to the traditional values of prudence and modesty. You follow a few simple rules. You don't get drunk. You don't get into bed with a guy you barely know and take off your clothes. If you do so, you're setting in motion a set of primal processes that are going to be hard to undertake. And that goes for boys, too. I frankly don't have a heck of a lot of sympathy for these guys who were falsely accused of rape, because they too could avoid any risk of false rape accusations by themselves reintroducing themselves to the traditional norms of gentlemanliness and chivalry. Instead of seeking to, have a one-night stand with some drunken girl they've met, walk your girlfriend home at night, kiss her goodnight, and write her a love poem at 2 a.m. All of this is completely preventable if the girls and boys exercise some prudence and foresight.
My love is like a red, red rose that's freshly sprung in. Okay,
Janice taking notes.
Taking notes.
This is like
Heather.
therapy for him.
No, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but I want to go back to something you said. I get what you're saying, the boorish conduct in both directions. But with respect to the Me Too movement and the sort of cultural norms that are being propagated by the media, if you're saying that masculinity is toxic, then why won't we see more false allegations? Because what's wrong with a false allegation? The person that you're targeting is inherently bad.
Well, I'm not saying that it's toxic. I'm saying that males have a strong sex drive. That is not
No.
toxic.
I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm saying what the left says on campus, the toxic masculinity, rape culture narrative of the left. If not you, I mean the left. If the left is going to promote that, then why wouldn't it encourage people to make false allegations? Because you're making a false allegation against somebody who's inherently bad.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And we've had commentators on the left basically say that, is I don't care if this is correct or not. Males have it coming to them. I mean, that's been one of the responses of virtually every phony racial hate crime hoax that gets questioned. The race advocates say, well, it doesn't matter whether it happened or not because it could have happened, and therefore let's do another 10 million of diversity training on campus to fight this phantom racism. So yes, we have, again, it cannot be overstated, Dan and Kristen, the campuses are teaching people to hate. They are using these broad categories of guilt and innocence. They're teaching students to think of themselves as victims on a college campus, which is delusional. There has never been a more tolerant environment in human history, at least if you're not a conservative, than a college campus. It celebrates the very characteristics that are still the cause for stoning and possibly death in many places across the world today. And yet students come out of those places believing that they have been victimized by circumambient racism and sexism. This is crazy, but they are carrying that chip on their shoulder into the world at large, and that is what explains the insanity that we have lived through for the last 3 weeks with the Kavanaugh hearings and the screaming banshees discarding due process and trying to dredge up every possible completely lunatic accusation against Kavanaugh on the theory, as you say, Dan, that anything a male does is by definition toxic.
She is Heather MacDonald. You can catch her wisdom and insights at our Freedom Summit, October 27th. Get to more information at our website. Get tickets. Heather MacDonald, contributing editor for City Journal, the author of the bestseller, The War on Cops. Heather, thanks as always for joining us. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, Dan. Look forward to it.
Take care. She joined us on the Turnkey.pro answer line.
You're listening to Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
There's